when I was growing up, I didn't want to be a mom. I was scared because my mom wasn't around a whole bunch, and I didn't really have that mother figure. She came back into my life when I was like 11 or 12, and she passed away when I was 18. And I had lots of emotions, and I didn't know how to deal with them. And I really didn't have anyone around to talk to them about what I was feeling. So I started using. My other coping skill was to work. I went to college, I got my associate's degree. I had street smarts, book smarts. I mean, I was employed. I was considered what you would call a functioning addict. But when I became pregnant, I mean, it seems like my whole world changed. And I wanted to do the best I could for her. When I first saw my daughter in the NICU, they said that she was substance exposed to meth, and I'm like, no, she wasn't. They're like, yeah, she was. Her meconium tested positive for meth, and I said, well, that's impossible. I wasn't using drugs. Well, you were also positive for drugs. And then they took her. She was only gone for a few days, but few days was enough for me to say, I'm done. So we had what they call a TDM, which is a teen decision meeting, and they let her come home with her father as a safety monitor. I started services at Taros. I went to groups twice a week, did everything that CPS wanted me to do. I did the in-home team, I did family preservation, I had a recovery coach from Taros, and I was going to group, and I was drug testing. And then finally I got the call that I could actually pick up my daughter without anyone being there. The safety monitor had been lifted, and I was ecstatic. My daughter was home. I took care of my daughter. She had food. She had a roof over her head. She went to all her doctor's appointments. And we were just living our life until I got laid off. So I started using more. Her dad and I got into a fight one night because I was denying my use again, and he threw a printer at us. So I called the police. A month later, CPS showed up again. So I thought everything was fine. And they're like, well, can you do a drug test? I'm like, sure. Then they had me testing like every few days. So there were some times when they were clean, and then there was times when they were dirty. So I had the opportunity to find a safety monitor, and my dad had just had open heart surgery, so I had nobody. And they came and took Taylor. One of the worst days of my life. I can remember handing her over to some lady that I didn't trust, with her crying, and I'm crying, and watching her drive away. I fell back to my coping skill, because that's what I knew. That first night was the hardest. I laid in her room and I fell asleep. And I think that's where I stayed for the next couple days. Then I got up, I tried to find somewhere to go to start treatment again. I was good for a while. My daughter actually came home after I got out of rehab. It wasn't until she came home and was in daycare and I wasn't working again that I got bored. And history repeats itself. 2 days before my case was supposed to close, they did a mouth swab at treatment, and I told them it was going to come back dirty. The judge had them remove my daughter that same day. I got home and I called the daycare and I said, can't pick up my daughter. Can you just please make sure she's got her blanket with her and tell her that her mommy loves her so very much. Second worst day of my life. This time was different. I don't know when the moment changed, but I just knew that nobody else was going to raise my daughter. I remember the day in court when they said that she was coming home. I was so happy. I was like this, and I squeezed her dad's hand, and I knew. I never wanted to let her go. I couldn't be here where I'm at today if it wasn't for CPS stepping into my life, unfortunately. And that takes a lot for me to say, because I've grown so much from that. It's not right that people say that we don't love our kids because we're using, because that wasn't the case. And I don't believe that is the case with any parent. They're struggling, and we need to help them get better. Parents can get better. I'm living proof that we can.